Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World Talks live from Warsaw. Well, protests in Georgia over the government's decision to postpone EU accession talks continue. The Prime Minister stated that the system is entering a self-purification mode. Now, what does it mean for Georgia's future, and can the opposition hope for a change to come? Well, to discuss the issue, we're joined by Elene Kintsurashvili, Program Coordinator at the German Marshall Fund East. Good evening. Thank you for coming to visit us. Now, Georgia's president doesn't expect Russia to intervene in Georgia in military terms, but what is your opinion? Is there such a possibility, distant possibility?
I think I would have to agree on this one with Madam President Zurabishvili. I think that right now, given the scope and the extent of the loss that Russia has taken with its war in Ukraine, Russia simply does not have enough resources to intervene in Georgia when it comes to the military intervention. But as Madam President also said, we are facing a hybrid Russian war that is presented by the regime in Georgia, Georgian Dream, that is a proxy of Kremlin, and its actions are directly linked with the interests of Kremlin in the region.
Our reporter Don Aleth said today that there were reports of some of the alleged policemen speaking Russian. Now, would that indicate that some Russia actors are in fact involved in the crackdown on the Georgian opposition?
So if it's proved, then of course it means that there is a direct violation, of course, and there are Russian troops pretty much also standing in front of the parliament in the streets of the capital in Tbilisi, and they are the ones actually who are violently beating the protesters and dispersing them using really brutal means. However, at the same time, so far we haven't really seen any official sources actually saying that yes, indeed, there are a number of Russian-speaking riot police among the Georgian riot police standing right now in Tbilisi.
Right. Now, what do you make of Prime Minister Kobakidze's words on self-purification? Well, that echoes very much the reality of Russia in the Stalinist era, or maybe in Putin's era as well.
Definitely. I mean, it's not the first time that we're seeing Georgian Dream play by the Russian playbook. This is just an additional proof that, in fact, Georgian Dream is in direct contact with the leadership in Kremlin. As you said, after the war broke out in Ukraine in 2022, Vladimir Putin himself used the same exact words when he was speaking about the Russians that had anti-war sentiment. He, just as the Georgian regime of Georgian Dream, were using the same word by word, saying that, you know, these people, they are not patriots, they are scums, and they have to be educated, and for that reason there needs to be a national and state level purification. So this is just another proof that in fact Georgian Dream is pro-Russian, and they are a proxy of the regime that governs modern Russia.
But can they say it officially?
Of course not. Of course not. I mean, when we talk about Georgia, we have to understand that Euro-Atlantic integration is really enshrined so deeply in the minds of the majority of Georgians that it's part of our constitution. Article 78 of Georgia's constitution clearly states that all the constitutional bodies should make sure to do everything in their power, everything possible, to ensure Georgia's Euro-Atlantic integration. Now, Bidzina Ioanishvili, the de facto ruler of Georgian Dream, when he came into the power 12 years ago, even though it was a well-known fact that he made his money after the Soviet Union dissolved in Russia, and he still had some links with the regime in Kremlin, he knew that had he entered Georgian politics with the narrative that in fact he does not want Georgia's Euro-Atlantic integration and he wants Georgia to be under the Russian influence, people simply would not vote for them. So basically what they did is that it was the sort of a facade that they created, that Georgian Dream is extremely pro-European, pro-European, pro-United States, and this was their end game, just as it is the end game for the Georgian people. And now what we are witnessing is that the masks are officially off. They can't really back off.
Now, are they? Are they really? Because the Prime Minister said that, well, of course, he first stated that his intention is to postpone the EU accession talks until 2028, but then he said that it is a misinterpretation of his words, that it is a grand lie, and that the country will follow its, quote, European dream.
Which is, of course, yet another lie. I mean, we all know that when the government says that for the next 4 years, in fact, they're not going to be doing anything in their power to bring Georgia closer to its Euro-Atlantic path, after 4 years, we all know that it's just simply not going to happen. But given that after the protests over the weekend, when around 200,000 people took it to the streets, and not only in Tbilisi, but all across Georgia, this is unprecedented. This is something that we have not really seen in the recent years. This is something that we didn't even see when people were protesting against anti-Russian law bouquet that the Georgian Dream earlier this year adopted. He just had to do something about it, because he had to also speak with not only the electorate that is angry at him, the electorate of the opposition, but also the electorate of the Georgian Dream, because one of the main promises that the Georgian Dream made to the people is that they were going to bring Georgia into Europe with dignity. And now what we are seeing is that they are saying that, in fact, until the end of 2028, there are not going to be even a single conversation on the state level to bring Georgia, even with dignity, into the European Union. So masks are off.
Right, you've just been there. You've just came back from Tbilisi, right? What's the mood in the streets, and how determined are people to continue with the protest?
As I said, what's happening in the streets of Georgia right now, it's really unprecedented. It's spontaneous, self-organized protests all across the country. I mean, there are towns that are protesting that I personally never remember them ever taking anything in the streets. There is a teeny tiny town, for example, Chorotsko, with residents of only 3,000, and more than half of 3,000 are in the streets already for 5 consecutive days. This is unprecedented. This is something that we have never seen. There are no political parties that are spearheading the protest. This is also something very new to us, because when you look at the history of Georgia, even if you take the Rose Revolution, there was always a leader, there was always a face that you could pinpoint to say that, okay, this is the person, and then the whole nation is
But is it good for the Georgian
them.
opposition not to have a clear leader?
So, from one hand it is,
I mean,
and
historically,
from another hand
it was a
is not.
liability, right, for Georgia, always.
Definitely, because basically what was happening is that when we went to the Georgian parliamentary elections at the end of October with the mindset that we might not like and align ourselves completely with any of the opposition spectrum, but we all understood, well, the majority understood that this was a bigger decision. This was about Georgia choosing either European Union and Euro-Atlantic integration, or Georgia choosing Russia. For that reason, President, alongside 4 different, well, 3 of them are coalitions and 1 of them is a party on the opposition spectrum, they all presented themselves and they told us, we understand that, you know, the road is bumpy and you might not like all of us. However, you have a choice, you have an option. There are these 4 different parties and / coalitions that you can choose from, and that's what people did. So at the end of the day, when the political parties actually tried to be the leaders and to be the driving force of this protest, what we saw is that there was a decline in the numbers of people who were willing to take it to the streets, because they were unhappy that there were politicians driving the force. And right now, I think that Georgian opposition understood this, so that's why they are trying to operate on the political level alongside the president, and then they are letting people, ordinary citizens who are just angry.
Alongside the president, what do you think awaits president come next year when she, well, according to the law, has to leave the office?
Actually, it's not going to be next year. It will be already end of this year. And given that this is the beginning of December, she officially doesn't have that many weeks left in the office. However, she is very strong in her statement. She is very strong in her stance, saying that the Georgian Dream's government is illegitimate. It's not constitutional. People did not choose them. I mean, even if you look at the 11th convocation of the parliament earlier last month, it was only the members of Georgian Dream who got gathered together inside of the parliament. They approved the parliament that consists only of themselves because there was not a single opposition member there. So,
however, what do you think will happen with President? Will she be forcibly removed from the office? Do you think maybe
Georgian Dream will
a jail?
So Georgian Dream will definitely attempt to remove her using force from the office. Georgian Dream leadership already made a statement that if need be, she will be taken out forcibly with her chair. Therefore, this is definitely something that we can expect in the weeks to come. However, the mood in the society, if you go on the social media, Georgian social media, or if you talk to the people that right now are in the streets protesting, everyone is saying that they are ready to stand until the very end with the president. Because right now,
that would lead to already
the face
to Georgian
want.
President's in prison after Mikhail Saakashvili. Okay, the people are with the opposition. Do you think that the situation can escalate? That the government can strike back by deploying the military to the streets of Georgian cities?
So usually Georgian military always has a very neutral stance. They are not really active participants when it comes to all the protests and the dispersions, and this is something that the Georgian Dream knows very well as well. So that's why right now we are seeing an excess amount of the riot police being deployed in the streets of Tbilisi. I do not think that they will ask the military to join, because there are also reports that actually the Georgian military would not use means of violence as we are seeing it right now, conducted by the riot police. So it actually might be a tactical error for the Georgian Dream if they ask the Georgian army to go and actually beat up the citizens of Georgia.
Now, Leslie, many commentators would say that the time is now if the change is to happen. If it's not now, what awaits Georgia after 4 years of this EU postponement talks?
After 4 years, we'll be looking at a very grave picture in which Georgia will be lost for the democratic and European world. Georgia will not be able to actually, as it's claimed by various leadership of the Georgian Dream, to return on its European path. We will be looking at Georgia that is much closer standing with Russia, with China, with other regimes that are definitely not democratic and rather authoritarian. Georgia will resemble something like modern Belarus as we know it, pretty much. So I'm afraid that there is not going to be coming back from that point, unfortunately. It's either now or never.
Elene Kintsurashvili, program coordinator at the German Marshall Fund East. Thank you very much for sharing your views with us tonight. And that's all we have prepared for now. Thank you for watching, and stay with us for much more news and features here on TVP World.